Picture this. It's 11:47. A 19-year-old named Caden is lying in his bed, phone 6 inches from his face, watching a guy named Chad from Dubai explain how he made $400,000 doing something called affiliate email funnels. Which, side note, by the way, is not a real job, just a guy with a ring light and a font. Caden closes the app, stares at the ceiling, and thinks, completely calmly, sincerely, yeah, that's going to be me by 23. Caden has $340 in his checking account. His job is folding shirts at Walmart. He does not have a business plan, a niche, or honestly, a Wi-Fi password that isn't stolen from his mom. And yet, somewhere in a nervous system, Caden knows, he knows that he's going to be rich. And he's not alone. This is every single Gen Zer right now. We are the most broke, most in debt, most can't afford a one-bedroom apartment generation in modern history. And simultaneously, we are the most confident we're all going to be millionaires by 30. So today we're doing a deep dive. Why does this generation, my generation, genuinely believe against all visible evidence that riches are basically inevitable? Where did this illusion come from? Or is it actually a delusion? Are we onto something the boomers never had access to? Grab a snack, it's going to be a long one, and let's get into it. Theory number one, and honestly the most obvious one. We grew up marinating at 24/7 highlight reel of other people's best days. Think about what boomers saw when they were growing up. They saw their neighbor. Maybe the neighbor had a nice boat or something. Gary down the street has a nice boat. But that's it. That's the entire scope of someone doing better than me. For most human history, the guy 3 houses down, and that's it. We don't have that problem, though. We have 4,000 Garys every single day showing us their boats, except now the boat is a Lambo rented for a photo shoot in Miami. The business is a Discord server that sells trading signals, and the caption says, manifesting my empire, like manifesting is a verb you can just do to money. We scroll past a 22-year-old in a private jet, then a 19-year-old who quit her 9 to 5 to sell digital planners on Etsy, and now owns a house or something. Then some guy explaining that he made 6 figures in his sleep because of something called print on demand, which is usually just him losing money slower than everybody else and calling it a brand. I would know because I have done this before. Here's the thing though, our brains were not built for this volume of comparison. Evolutionarily, your brain is built to compare you to the 50 or so people in your tribe, not 50,000 strangers curating the best 9 seconds of their entire month. When you seek success content 200 times a day, your brain doesn't log it as rare outlier flexing for the algorithm, it logs it as a baseline. This is what normal looks like now. Everyone's rich apparently except for me, which means it must be coming for me too, any day now. And look, I'm not an outlier here either. I've absolutely watched a 24-year-old's day in the life of a self-made millionaire video and felt a pit in my stomach. Then I went back to writing scripts for a channel that monetizes off of explaining why I feel like a failure. It's a whole ecosystem, honestly. Very efficient, very evil. Shout out Danhausen. Theory number two. Somewhere around 2015 to 2019, an entire generation got hit with the hustle culture gospel. You knew the sermon. Rise and grind. Sleep is for the weak. If you're not working on your dream, you're working on someone else's. 5 a.m. cold plunge, then straight into building your empire. An empire, by the way, that in 90% of cases turns out to be a Shopify store selling the exact same eyelash curler as 400 other Shopify stores. We were taught constantly through TikTok and YouTube and Instagram Reels that a normal job is basically a trap for people who lack imagination, that a 9 to 5 is a cage, that the only people who get rich are the ones who bet on themselves. Meanwhile, nobody, and I mean nobody, was mentioning that half of these hustle gurus got their starter capital from a rich uncle, a severance package, or selling courses about hustling to teenagers who don't know better. That's the part nobody talks about. So much of the I got rich young content isn't actually people getting rich from the things they're selling. It's people getting rich by selling you the idea that you could get rich from the thing. It's a guy who makes money teaching people how to make money, teaching people. Somewhere at the bottom of that pyramid is Caden with his $340 and a Canva subscription. So when an entire generation is told from age 13 that wealth is just a mindset problem, that the only thing standing between you and a Lambo is limiting beliefs, of course you start to think it's inevitable. You've been sold the idea that broke is a choice, that poor people haven't unlocked the rich mindset yet, which if you think about it for more than 4 seconds, it's one of the most convenientized capitalism has ever produced. Because it means nobody has to look at wages, nobody has to look at rent, it's just you didn't manifest hard enough. Okay, theory 3, and this one's a little spicier. My generation has had casino-level access to speculative investing since we were basically children, and it's been marketed to us as smart financial literacy. Options trading apps that turn your portfolio into a slot machine with little confetti animations every time you make a trade. Yes, Robinhood, I'm directly looking at you and your confetti. That is predatory interior design. Nothing says responsible investing like a party emoji when you just gambled your rent money on a coin named after a dog. We watched GameStop go from $4 to $400 in a week because of Reddit forum. We watched people our age turn a few $1,000s into a few $1,000,000 on Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, and JPEGs of cartoon apes that were, briefly, worth more than actual apartments. Think about that for a second. Actual apartments that people could have lived in. Instead, there was a picture of a bored monkey, worth more. And here's a psychological trap. These stories are true. They're not fake. Somebody genuinely did turn 2,000 into 2,000,000 on a coin their friend told them about as a joke. It really happened, which means it's not a lie you're being told. It's a lottery ticket you watch someone else win, live, in real time, on your phone. And your brain, again, all full of statistics, does not go, this was a 1 in 11 million outcome. Your brain goes, this is possible, this has happened, and therefore it can happen to me. And that's the part that actually worries me a little, if I'm being honest with you for a second. Because gambling used to require walking into a casino. Now it requires opening an app you have already opened 14 hours a day. The line between investing and gambling got so blurry for my generation that we didn't even flinch anymore. We call it a portfolio. It's a slot machine with better branding. Alright, deep breath. Because I think there's something real underneath all the jokes I've been making, and I don't want to gloss past it. Gen Z didn't invent the dream of getting rich. Every generation's wanted that. What's different is the gap between the dream and the actual math. Wages, adjusted for inflation, have barely moved for young workers in decades. Meanwhile, the cost of, well, everything that matters, rent, tuition, healthcare, a used car that didn't break down on the highway, has shot up dramatically. The old advice, get a stable job, work hard, buy a house by 30, isn't outdated because we're lazy or entitled. It's outdated because of a huge number of cities, the math genuinely does not close. You can do everything right, save diligently, skip the avocado toast. I'm sorry, that joke's been told about 250,000 times by now. But still not be able to afford what your parents afforded on a single income 40 years ago. So when traditional paths feel broken, people don't stop wanting security. They just start looking for other paths to it. And the paths that get the most airtime, the ones the algorithm actually shows you, are the flashy ones. The crypto win, the dropshipping empire, the influencer deal. Not because those are the most common, but because I worked a steady job for 11 years and now I have a modest retirement fund does not get 5 million views. Boring truths don't, reckless jackpots do. So in a weird way, Gen Z's belief that we will all be rich isn't pure delusion. It's closer to like a coping mechanism dressed up as a business plan. If the normal route feels closed, believing in the lottery ticket route is at least something to hold on to. Hope, even irrational hope, feels better than doing the math on your rent to income ratio and just quietly screaming into a pillow, which, by the way, I've done more than once. But let's talk about the actual business model behind a lot of this, because I think it's generally one of the most funniest and depressing things about modern internet history. There's an enormous industry, and I mean enormous like billions of dollars, built entirely around teaching young people how to get rich. Courses, coaching calls, masterminds, ebooks with titles like the 4-Hour Bag or something like that. And the dirty secret, the thing that should be printed on the side of every single one of these products, like a cigarette warning, the most reliable way to get rich from a gold rush is to sell shovels. The worst part is people aren't lying about being rich. Some of them really are rich. They're just rich from a completely different business than the one they're teaching you. They're not rich from flipping products online. They're rich from teaching other people to flip products online at like $1,000 for a limited time cohort. That is definitely, for sure, going to close enrollment forever tomorrow and then reopen in exactly 6 weeks with a new countdown timer. The urgency is fake. The scarcity is fake. The testimonial from Marcus made $40,000 in 30 days is doing a lot of heavy lifting in the thumbnail. And Gen Z grew up watching this entire performance from age 12. So of course a huge chunk of us walk around thinking wealth is around the corner. We've watched thousands of people confidently, charismatically, and convincingly tell us it is. Some of them even believe it themselves. And that's the scariest part. It's not always cynical scamming. A lot of it is true believers who got lucky once, mistaking their luck for a system, and now selling that system to 14-year-olds with a paper route's worth of savings. Now here's where I want to complicate my own argument a little, because I don't think this video should just be 40 jabs at my own generation and sad trombone noise at the end. Because some of this confidence isn't delusion, some of it is actually useful. Gen Z has started more businesses per capita at a young age than almost any generation on record. We're more comfortable with multiple income streams, more willing to negotiate, and more willing to walk away from a bad job than generations who were taught that loyalty to one company for 30 years was virtue, instead of frequently a trap. A lot of the tools that used to be gatekept, investing, building an audience, starting a company with basically zero overhead, actually are more accessible now than they were to our parents. That part really isn't fake. So maybe the belief that we'll be rich really isn't about yachts and Lambos for most of us. Deep down, maybe it's just a belief that things can really get better. We're not doomed to replicate whatever ceiling our parents hit. And honestly, even if the yacht part is nonsense for 99% of us, that underlying hope, that refusal to accept this is just how it is, that part might actually be the healthiest thing about this whole generation. The trick is just figuring out which part of the dreams are fuel and which parts are a guy named Chad from Dubai trying to sell you a $997 course. But let's go back to Caden now. 19 years old, $340 in his account, folding shirts at Walmart, fully convinced he'll be rich by 23. Is he? Well, probably not by 23, if we're being honest. Is he crazy for believing it? Not really. He's a product of a very specific, very strange decade. One that showed him 1,000 lottery winners, told him a normal job was a cage, handed him a slot machine disguised as an investing app, and then charged him $1,000 to learn how to unlock his abundance mindset. Of course he thinks he's going to make it, and why shouldn't he? We all kind of do. The real question isn't why does Gen Z think they'll be rich, it's whether we hang on to the hope part without falling for the shovel salesman along the way. Anyway, that's the whole video. If you saw yourself in Caden even a little bit, no judgment because, writing this script I did myself. But drop a comment telling me the dumbest get rich thing you almost fell for. I guarantee it's probably going to be kind of crazy. But like and subscribe and go check your bank account. I'll be waiting.